and welcome to the live stream of Our Town, a staged reading to benefit the Frostig School. My name is Dean Conklin, and I'm the Executive Director of the school. Before we begin our reading, I'd like to take a minute to tell you about Frostig. We're a school for students from kindergarten through 12th grade. We have about 125 students attending our campus in Pasadena, and I'm excited about our new campus on the west side of Los Angeles. At both campuses, we teach students who have challenges when it comes to learning. These challenges may include specific learning differences such as dyslexia or dysgraphia. They may also include high-functioning autism, attention issues, and anxiety issues. Our students have two things in common. One, school is challenging for them. They typically are a year or two behind in at least one academic area. The other trait that is true for all of our students is that, in spite of the fact that school is difficult for them, they show up every day. How many of us choose to do something that is difficult and do it every day? Well, our students do. They persevere, they have grit, they're brave. That is why they deserve to be supported, and that is why we are doing this reading for you, to support our kids. I would like to direct your attention to the donation link posted in the description box on this page. When you click that link, it will take you to a page on our website. These tax-deductible donations will help support the Frostig Community Fund that was established during this pandemic to help support families in our community by providing such things as groceries or supplies for home-based learning. We are also able to utilize your donations to help support the school itself so that we can maintain the quality of education and commitment to our students and staff. In closing, I would also like to thank Christina Harris, our outstanding drama teacher, for putting together this evening's performance. Christina is one of our many teachers who have been confronted with the challenge of teaching children through this pandemic. Not only has she energetically and creatively risen to that challenge, she's gone above and beyond, as exemplified by the work she has done to put our presentation on for you this evening. Thank you, Christina. Now, I'd like to turn the screen over to Christina, who will direct tonight's reading.
Wow, thank you, Dean. That was very kind. Thank you so much. Folks, you are in for a treat tonight. We have been able to assemble an extremely talented and soulful cast to read one of the greatest American plays. Before we begin, I want to remind everyone that we are live, which unfortunately leaves us at the mercy of the internet and various other distractions, like our children and our dogs roaming around our house right now. In the event that one of our actors loses their connection, we do have two understudies on standby to fill in for those roles until our actor can come back online. If you are joining us on YouTube, please note the Zoom webinar link posted in the description box. And in the event that YouTube stops streaming, please join us directly on our webinar by clicking that link. Know that you will be watching as an attendee, and your audio or video will not interrupt the stage reading. Please note, though, that you do have to have Zoom downloaded on as an app before you can use it. There will be a 10-minute intermission between Acts 2 and 3, at which time I will come back to answer any questions I can from the comment section you leave on the YouTube page or on the Zoom webinar page. The show runs about 2 hours with the intermission, and afterwards, we invite you to stay on with us live to answer a short Q&A session with the cast. Again, we will answer questions that you leave in the comment section on YouTube or on the Zoom Q&A page. Very briefly, as we all want to get on with the reading, I want to share a quote from Thornton Wilder about our town. He states, "It is an attempt to find a value above all price for the smallest events of our daily life." For those of you who have never seen a production of Our Town, or perhaps last visited this play in high school or middle school, simply put, it is a quaint and sentimental story about the way we live and die. In the opening stage directions, Wilder states, "No curtain, no scenery." So just as Wilder intended, I hope you can embrace the lack of theatricality, so to speak, and just really listen to the words being read by our immensely talented cast. You will be asked several times throughout the play to recollect your own personal life experiences as we, the audience, don't get to sit passively through the play, but are challenged to use our own mind's eye, our own interpretation of the world unfolding around us, and use emotional recall of our own past experiences with daily love, life, and death. Through Wilder's words, we are reminded how very precious daily life is, a message we as a world right now can firmly root ourselves in a common bond together. Now I turn us over to the stage manager, read tonight by the brilliant John Michael Higgins, to begin our reading of Our Town by Thornton Wilder.
Act 1. This play is called Our Town. It was written by Thornton Wilder and directed by Mrs. Harris. In it, you will see Miss Brenneman, Miss Potts, Mr. Finney, Mr. Leonard, Miss Blue, Miss Hall, Mr. Alpay, Mr. Ehrenberg, and many others. The name of the town is Grover's Corners, New Hampshire. It's just across the Massachusetts line, latitude 42 degrees, 40 minutes, longitude 70 degrees, 37 minutes. The first act shows a day in our town. The day is May 7th, 1901. The time is just before dawn. The sky is beginning to show some streaks of light over in the east there behind our mountain. The morning star always gets wonderful bright the minute before it has to go, doesn't it? Well, I'd better show you how our town lies. Up here, that is parallel with the back wall, is Main Street. Way back there is the railway station. Tracks go that way. Polish towns across the tracks, some Canuck families as well. Toward the left, over there is the Congregational Church. Across the street is the Presbyterian, the Methodist, Unitarian. Over there, the Baptist is down in the hollow by the river. And the Catholic Church is well beyond the tracks. This is Town Hall and Post Office combined. The jail is in the basement. Brian once made a speech from these very steps. Along here is a row of houses, stores, hitching posts, horse blocks in front of them. First automobiles come along in about 5 years, belong to Banker Cartwright, our richest citizen, lives in that great big white house up there on the hill. This is the grocery store, and here's Mr. Morgan's drugstore. Most everybody in town manages to look into those two stores at least once a day. Public schools over yonder, the high school still farther over. 8:45 in the mornings, noon times, and 3 o'clock afternoons, the whole town can hear the yelling and screaming from those schoolyards. This is our doctor's house, Doc Gibbs. This is his back door. There's some scenery here for those who feel they need to have scenery. And this is Mrs. Gibbs' garden. Corn, peas, hollyhocks. There's heliotrope there, quite a lot of burdock. In those days, our newspaper came out twice a week, the Grover's Corners Sentinel. And this is Editor Webb's house. And this is Mrs. Webb's garden. It's just like Mrs. Gibbs' garden, actually. It's got a lot of sunflowers, though, too. It's a nice town. You know what I mean? Nobody very remarkable has ever come out of it, as far as we know. The earliest tombstones in the cemetery up there on the mountain say 1670, 1680. There's Grovers and Cartwrights, and Gibbses and Herseys, pretty much the names we have around here now. And, well, as I said, it's about dawn. The only lights in town are in a cottage over by the tracks where a Polish mother has just given birth to twins. And of course, there's a light on in Joel Crowell's house where Joe Jr. is getting up so as to deliver the paper. And of course, in the depot where Shorty Hawkins is getting ready to flag the 545 for Boston. Now, naturally, out in the country, all around, there have been lights on for some time, but with the milking and all that. But town people, they sleep late. So, another day has begun. There's Doc Gibbs coming down the main street right now, coming back from that baby case. And here's his wife coming downstairs to get some breakfast. Doc Gibbs died in 1930. The new hospital is named after him. Mrs. Gibbs died first, a long time ago, actually. She went out to visit her daughter, Rebecca, who married an insurance man from Ohio, Canton. Died there, pneumonia. But her body was brought back here. She's up there in the cemetery now. The whole mess of Gibbses and Herseys. She was Julia Hersey before she married Doc Gibbs in the Congregational Church right over there. In our town, we like to know the facts about everybody. And that's Doc Gibbs. He got that call at 1:30 this morning, and there comes Joe Crowell Jr. delivering Mr. Webb's Sentinel.
Morning, Doc Gibbs.
Morning, Joe.
Somebody being sick, Doc?
Oh, no, just some twins down, born over in Polish Town.
Do you want your paper now?
Yeah, I'll take it. Anything serious going on in the world since Wednesday?
Yes, sir. My school teacher, Miss Foster's getting married to a fellow over in Concord.
Oh, I declare. How you boys feel about that?
Well, of course, it's none of my business, but I think if a person starts out to be a teacher, I think she ought to stay one.
How's your knee, Joe?
Fine, Doc. I never think about it at all. Only like you said, it always tells me when it's going to rain.
Oh, what's it telling you today? Going to rain?
No, sir.
Sure?
Yes, sir.
Your knee ever been mistaken?
No, sir.
All right.
I want to tell you something about that boy, Joe Crowell there. Joe was awful bright. He graduated from high school head of his class, so he got a scholarship to Massachusetts Tech. He graduated head of his class there, too. It was all wrote up in the Boston paper at the time. Going to be a great engineer. But the war broke out, and he died in France. All that education for nothing.
Get up, Bessie. What's the matter with you today?
Hey! Morning, Howie.
Hey, morning, Doc. Somebody sick?
Your pair of twins over in Mrs. Gozowski's.
Twins, hey? This town's getting big every year.
Hey, going to rain, Howie?
No. Fine day, it'll burn through. Come on, Bessie.
Hey, hello, Bessie. How old is she, Howie?
Going on 17. Bessie's all mixed up about the route ever since the Lockharts stopped taking their quart of milk every day.
Oh,
She wants to leave them a quart just the same. Keeps scolding me the whole trip.
Sure.
Morning, Howie.
Oh, morning, Miss Gibbs. Doc's just coming down the street.
Is he? Seems like you're late today.
Yeah. Something went wrong with the separator. Don't know what 'twas.
Children, it's time to get up.
Come on, Bessie.
George, Rebecca. Everything all right, Frank?
yes, I declare. Easy as kittens.
Bacon will be ready in a minute. Sit down and drink your coffee. You can catch a couple hours sleep this morning, can't you?
Oh, Mrs. Wentworth's coming at 11. Guess I know what it's about, too. Her stomach ain't what it ought to be.
All told, you won't get more than 3 hours sleep, Frank Gibbs. I don't know what's going on of you. I do wish I could get you to go away someplace and take a rest.
Oh, come on.
I think it would do you good. I declare you've got to speak to George. Seems like something's come over him lately. He's no help at all to me, and I can't even get him to cut the wood.
Is he sassy to you?
No, he just whines. All he thinks about is that baseball. George, Rebecca, be late for school. George.
George, look sharp.
Yes, Pa?
Don't you hear your mother calling you? I guess I'll go upstairs, get 40 winks.
Huh? What dress shall I wear?
Don't make a noise. Your father's been out all night, needs to sleep. I washed and ironed the blue gingham for you special.
I hate that dress.
Oh, hush up.
Every day I go to school looking like a sick turkey.
Now, Rebecca, you look very nice.
Emily, time to get up. Wally, 7 o'clock.
There's Mrs. Webb. She's coming down to get her breakfast too.
Wally, Emily, you'll be late for school. Wally, you wash yourself good or I'll come up and do it myself.
Oh, we've got a factory in our town too. You hear that? Makes blankets. The Cartwrights own it, and it brung them a fortune.
Children, now I won't have it. Breakfast is just as good as any other meal and I won't have you gobbling like wolves. It'll stunt your growth. That's a fact. Put away your book, Wally.
Ma, by 10 o'clock, I got to know all about Canada.
You know the rules as well as I do. No books at table. As for me, I'd rather have my children healthy than bright.
Well, I'm both, Mama. You know I am. I am the brightest girl in school for my age. I have a wonderful memory.
Hey, I'm bright too when I'm looking at my stamp collection.
I'll speak to your father about it when he's rested. It seems to me 25 cents a week's enough for a boy your age. I declare, I don't know how you spend it all.
Ma, I got a lot of things to buy.
Strawberry phosphates, that's what you spend it on.
Well, I don't see how Rebecca comes to have so much money. She has more than $1.
And saving it up gradual.
Well, dear, I think it's a good thing to spend some every now and then.
Mama, do you know what I love most in the world, do ya?
Eat
Money.
Eat your breakfast.
Oh, Mama, there's the first bell. I gotta hurry.
Tell Miss Foster I send her my best congratulations. Can you remember that?
Yes, Ma.
You look real nice, Rebecca. Pick up your feet.
Walk fast, but you don't have to run. Wally, pull up your pants at the knee. Stand up straight, Emily.
Morning, Myrtle. How's your cold?
Well, I still get that tickling feeling in my throat. I told Charles I don't know if I'd be going to the choir practice tonight. Wouldn't be any use.
Have you tried singing over your voice?
Yes, but somehow I can't do that and stay on key. While I'm resting myself, I thought I'd string some of these beans.
Well, let me help you. Beans been good this year.
I've decided to put up 40 quarts if it kills me. Children say they hate them, but I notice they're able to get them down all winter.
Now, Myrtle, I've got to tell you something, because if I don't tell somebody, I'll burst.
Why, Julia Gibbs.
Here, give me some of those beans. Myrtle, did one of those secondhand furniture men from Boston come to see you last Friday?
No.
No. Well, he called on me. At first, I thought he was a patient wanting to see Doc Gibbs, but and then he wormed his way into my parlor, and Myrtle Webb, he offered me $350 for Grandmother Webb's highboy. As I'm sitting here.
By Julia Gibbs.
He did that old thing. Well, it was so big, I didn't know where to put it, and I almost gave it to cousin Hester Wilcox.
Well, you're going to take it, aren't you?
I don't know.
You don't know? $350? What's come over you?
Well, if I could get the doctor to take the money and go away someplace on a real trip, I'd sell it like that. You know, Myrtle, it's been the dream of my life to see Paris, France. I don't know, it sounds crazy, I suppose, but for years I've been promising myself that if we ever had the chance.
How does the doctor feel about it?
Well, I did beat about the bush a little, but then I said that if I got a legacy, that's the way I put it. If I got a legacy, I'd make him take me somewhere.
Mm-hmm. What did he say?
Oh, you know how he is. Haven't heard a serious word since I've known him out of him. Anyway, he said it might make him discontented with Grover's Corners to go traipsing about Europe. Better let well enough alone, he says. Every 2 years, he makes a trip down to those battlefields of the Civil War And that's enough treat for anybody, he says.
Well, Mr. Webb just admires the way Dr. Gibb knows everything about the Civil War. Mr. Webb's a good mind to give up Napoleon and move over to the Civil War. Only Dr. Gibbs, being one of the greatest experts in the country, just makes him despair.
It's a fact. Dr. Gibbs is never so happy as when he's at Antietam or Gettysburg. The times I have walked over those hills, Myrtle, stopping at every bush and pacing it out like we were going to buy the place.
Well, if that secondhand man's really serious about buying it, Julia, you sell it. And then you'll get to see Paris all night. All right. Just keep dropping hints from time to time. That's how I got to see the Atlantic Ocean, you know.
I'm sorry I mentioned it. Only it seems to me that once in your life, before you die, you ought to see a country where they don't talk in English and don't even want to.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you very much. And now we're going to skip a few hours, but first we want a little more information about the town, kind of scientific account of the town. So I've asked Professor Willard of our state university to sketch a few details of our past history here. Is Mr. Professor Willard here? Excuse me, Professor Willard. May I introduce Professor Willard of our state university? A few brief notes. Thank you, Professor. Unfortunately, our time is limited.
Oh, Grover's Corners. Let me see. Grover's Corners lies on the old Placetine granite of the Appalachian Range. I may say it's some of the oldest land in the world. We're very proud of that. A shelf of Devonian basalt mixes with some vestiges of Mesozoic shale with some sandstone outcroppings, but those are all more recent, 200, 300 million years old. Some highly interesting fossils have been found. I may say unique fossils, 2 miles out of town in Silas Peckham's cow pasture. They can be seen at the museum in our university at any time. That is, at any reasonable time. Shall I read some of Professor Gruber's notes on the meteorological situation, mean precipitation, etc.?
Well, I'm afraid we won't have time for that, Professor. We might have a few words on the history of man here.
Yes, anthropological data.
Yes.
Early Amerindian stock, Cotahatchee tribes, no evidence before the 10th century of this era. Now entirely disappeared. Possible traces in 3 families. Migration toward the end of the 17th century of English brachiocephalic blue-eyed stock. For the most part. Since then, some Slav and Mediterranean.
The population, Professor Willard.
Within the town limits, 2,640.
Well, just a moment, Professor Willard.
Oh, yes, indeed. The population at the moment is 2,642. The postal district brings in 507 more, making a total of 3,149. Yeah. Mortality, birth rates, constant. By McPherson's gauge, 6.032.
Well, thank you very much, Professor. We're all very much obliged, I'm sure.
Oh, not at all, sir. Not at all.
And now the political and social report from Editor Webb. Mr. Webb.
He'll be here in a minute. He just cut his hand while he was eating an apple.
Oh, thank you, Mrs. Webb.
Charles, everybody's waiting.
Mr. Webb is publisher and the editor of the Grover's Corner Sentinel. It's our local paper, you know.
Well, I don't have to tell you that we're run here by a board of selectmen. All males vote at the age of 21. Women vote indirect. We're lower middle class, sprinkling of professional men, 10% illiterate laborers. Politically, we are 86% Republican, 6% Democrat, 4% Socialist, rest indifferent. Religiously, we're 85% Protestants, 12% Catholics, rest indifferent.
Have you any comments, Mr. Webb?
Very ordinary town, if you ask me. A little better behaved than most, probably a lot duller, but our young people seem to like it well enough. 90% of them graduating from high school settle down right here to live, even when they've been away to college.
Well, now, is there anyone in the audience who would like to ask Editor Webb anything at all about the town?
Oh, yes. Is there much drinking in Grover's Corners?
Well, ma'am, I wouldn't know what you call much. Saturday nights, the farmhands meet down in Ellery Greenhough's stable and holler some. We've got one or two town drunks, but they're always having remorses every time an evangelist comes to town. No, ma'am, I'd say liquor ain't a regular thing in the home here, except in the medicine chest. Right good for a snake bite, you know, always was.
Is there no one in town aware of,
Sorry, sir, could you come forward so we can all hear you? I'm sorry, what were you saying?
Is there no one in this town aware of social injustice and industrial inequality?
Oh, yes, everybody is. Something terrible. Seems like they spend most of their time talking about who's rich and who's poor.
Well, then why don't they do something about it?
Well, I don't know. I guess we're all hunting like everybody else for a way the diligent and sensible can rise to the top and the lazy and quarrelsome can sink to the bottom. But it ain't easy to find. Meanwhile, we do all we can to help those who can't help themselves, and those that can, we leave alone. Any other questions?
Mr. Webb, is there any culture or love of beauty in Grover's Corners?
Well, ma'am, there ain't much. But not in the sense that you mean. Come to think of it, there's some girls that play the piano at high school commencement, but they ain't happy about it. No, ma'am, there isn't much culture, but maybe this is the place to tell you that we've got a lot of pleasures of a kind here. We like the sun coming up over the mountain in the morning, and we all notice a good deal about the birds. We pay a lot of attention to them, and we watch the change of the seasons. Yes, everybody knows about them. But those other things, you're right, ma'am, there ain't much. Robinson Crusoe and the Bible and Handel's Largo, we all know that, and Whistler's Mother. And those are about as far as we go.
So I thought. Thank you, Mr. Webb.
Thank you, Mr. Webb. Now we'll go back to the town. It's early afternoon. All 2,642 have had their dinners and washed the dishes, and they're all washed up. And there's an early afternoon calm in our town, a buzzing and a humming. From the school buildings, only a few buggies on Main Street. The horses are dozing at the hitching posts. You all remember what it's like. Doc Gibbs is in his office, tapping people, making them say, ah. Mr. Webb's cutting his lawn over there. 1 man in 10 thinks it's a privilege to push his own lawnmower. Oh my goodness, no sir, it's later than I thought. There are children coming home from school already.
Oh, I can't, Lois. I've got to go home and help with my mother. I promised.
Emily, walk simply. Who do you think you are today?
Oh, Papa, you're terrible. One minute you tell me to stand up straight, the next minute you call me names. I just don't listen to you.
Well, golly, I never got a kiss from such a great lady before.
Oh, excuse me, Mrs. Farr.
Oh, go out and play in the fields, young man. You got no business playing baseball in Main Street.
I'm awfully sorry, Mrs. Forrest. Hello, Emily.
Hello.
You know, you made a fine speech in class today, Emily.
Oh, well, I was really ready to make a speech about the Monroe Doctrine, but at the last minute, Miss Corcoran, she made me talk about the Louisiana Purchase instead. I worked an awful long time on both of them.
Well, hey, gee, Emily, you know, from my window right up there, I can just see your headlights when you're doing your homework over in your room.
What, can you?
You certainly do stick to it, Emily. I don't see how you can sit still that long. I guess you like school.
Well, I always feel like it's something that you have to go through.
Yeah.
I don't mind it really. It passes the time.
Yeah. Okay, Emily. Hey, what do you think? We might work out a kind of telegraph from your window to mine, and once in a while you could give me a kind of hint or two about some of those algebra problems. I don't mean the answers, Emily. Of course not. Just, you know, just maybe a hint or two.
Oh, well, I think hints are allowed. So if you get stuck, George, you whistle at me and I'll give you some hints.
Emily, you're just naturally bright, I guess.
I figure it's just the way a person's born.
Yeah. But you see, I want to be a farmer. And my Uncle Luke says whenever I'm ready, I can come over and work on his farm. And you know, if I'm any good, I could just kind of gradually have it.
Oh, you mean the house and everything?
Yeah. Oh, well, you know, thanks. I better get going out to the baseball field. Thank you for the talk, Emily. Hello, Mrs. Webb.
Good afternoon, George.
So long, Emily.
So long, George.
Emily, come help me string these beans for winter. George Gibbs let himself have a real conversation, didn't he? He's growing up. How old would George be?
I don't know.
Well, let's see. He must be almost 16.
Mama, I made a speech in class today and I was very good.
Oh, you must recite it to your father at supper. What was it about?
The Louisiana Purchase. It was it was like silk off a spool. I'm gonna make speeches all my life. Mom, are these big enough?
Try to get them a little bigger, dear.
Mama, will you answer me a question serious?
Seriously, dear, not serious.
Seriously, will you?
Of course I will.
Mama, am I good looking?
Yes, of course you are. All my children have good features. I'd be ashamed if they hadn't.
Mama, that's not what I mean. I mean, what I mean is, am I pretty?
I've already told you, yes. Now that's enough of that. You have a nice, young, pretty face. I never heard of such foolishness.
Oh, Mama, you never tell us the truth about anything.
I am telling you the truth.
Mama, were you pretty?
Yes. I was, if I do say it. I was the prettiest girl in town, I mean, next to Mamie Cartwright.
Well, Mama, you gotta say something about me. Am I pretty enough to get anybody, to get people interested in me?
Oh, Emily, you make me tired. Now stop it. You are pretty enough for all normal purposes. Now come along. Bring that bowl with you.
Mama, you're no help at all.
Well, thank you. Thank you, ladies. That'll do. We're going to have to interrupt again here. All right. Thank you, Mrs. Webb. And thank you, Emily. There are some more things that we want to explore in this town. I think it's a good time to tell you that the Cartwright interest has just begun building a bank in Grover's Corners, a new one. Had to go to Vermont for the marble, sorry to say. And they've asked a friend of mine, what should they put in the cornerstone for people to dig up 1,000 years from now? Now, of course, they put in a copy of the New York Times and a copy of Mr. Webb's Sentinel. We're all kind of interested in this because some scientific fellas have found a way of painting all that reading material with a kind of glue, a silicate glue, that'll keep it 1,000, 2,000 years. So we're putting in a Bible and the Constitution of the United States and a copy of William Shakespeare's plays. And, well, what do you think, folks? What do you think should go in there? You know, Babylon once had 2 million people in it. And all we know about them is the names of some kings and some copies of wheat contracts and the contracts for the sale of slaves. Yet every night, those families sat down at supper and the father came home from work and the smoke went up the chimney, just the way it does here. Even in Greece and Rome, we all know about the real life of the people. We don't know much at all. All we can do is piece it together out of joking poems and comedies that they all wrote for the theater back then. So I'm going to have a copy of this play put in the cornerstone, and the people 1,000 years from now will know what a few simple facts were about us, more than the Treaty of Versailles and the Lindbergh flight. You see what I mean? So, people of 1,000 years from now, this is the way we were in the provinces north of New York at the beginning of the 20th century. This is the way we were. In our growing up, in our marrying, and in our living, and in our dying. Well, a good deal of time has gone by now. It's evening. We can hear a choir practice going on in the Congregational Church. The children are at home doing their schoolwork. The day is running down like a tired clock.
Now, look here, everybody. Music come into the world to give pleasure. Yes? Okay. Again. Softer. 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 Okay. Get it out of your heads that music is only good when it's loud. You leave loudness to the Methodists. You couldn't beat them even if you wanted to. Now, again.
Emily!
Hello?
Hello?
I can't work at all. The moonlight is just so terrible.
Yeah, hey, Emily, did you get the third problem?
Which?
The third!
Oh, wow. Yes, George, that's the easiest one of all.
I don't see it. Emily, can you give me a hint?
Okay, I'll tell you one thing. The answer is in yards.
In yards? Well, how do you mean?
In square yards.
Oh, square yards.
Yes. George, don't you see?
Yeah, no.
It's in square yards of wallpaper.
Wallpaper? Oh, I do see it. Yeah. Thanks a lot, Emily.
You're welcome. My, isn't the moonlight just terrible? And that choir practice going on. I think if you hold your breath, you can hear the train all the way to Contoocook. Can you hear it?
Oh, well, what do you know?
Well, I guess I better go back and try to work.
Oh, yeah. Good night, Emily. And thank
Good night, George.
Before I forget it, how many of you will be able to come in Tuesday afternoon and sing at Fred Hersey's wedding? Show your hands. Oh, yeah, that'll be fine. That'll be right nice. We'll do the same music we did at Jane Trowbridge's last month. Now, we'll do Art Thou Weary, Art Thou Languid. It's a question, ladies and gentlemen. Make it talk. Ready?
George, you come down here a minute.
Yes, Pa.
Just make yourself comfortable. I'll just keep you a minute or two. George, how old are you?
Well, I'm 16, almost 17.
What do you want to do after school's over?
Well, you know, Pa, I want to be a farmer on Uncle Luke's farm.
Uh-huh. So you'll be willing, will you, to get up early, milk and feed the stock, and you'll be able to hoe and hay all day?
Sure I will. I mean, what do you mean, Pa?
Well, George, while I was in my office today, I heard a funny sound.
Oh.
Yeah, what do you think it was? It was your mother chopping wood. Yeah, you see your mother getting up early, cooking meals all day long, washing and ironing, and still she has to go in the backyard and chop wood. I suppose she just got tired of asking you. She just gave up, decided it was easier to do it herself. And you eat her meals, put on the clothes that she keeps nice for you, and you run off and play baseball. Like she's some hired girl we keep around the house, but that we don't like very much. Well. I knew all I had to do was call your attention to it. Here's a handkerchief, son. George, I've decided to raise your spending money to 25 cents a week. Not, of course, for chopping wood for your mother, because that's a present that you give her, but because you're getting older, and I imagine there are lots of things you must find you'd want to do with it.
Thanks, Pa.
Yeah, let's see. So tomorrow's your payday. You can count on it. Probably Rebecca will want more too. I wonder what could have happened to your mother. Choir practice is never as late as this before.
Well, it is only 8:30, Pa.
Well, I don't know why she's in that old choir anyhow. She hasn't any more voice than an old crow, traipsing around the streets this hour of the night. Just about time you retired, don't you think?
Yes, Pa.
Night, Martha. Night, Mr. Foster.
Mine's late.
Good night, Anna.
Real nice choir practice, wasn't it? Myrtle Webb, look at that moon, will you? Potato weather for sure.
Naturally, I didn't want to say a word about it in front of those others, but now we're alone. Really? It's the worst scandal that ever was in this town.
What?
Simon Stimson.
Now, Luella.
What? But Julia, to have the organist of a church drink and drunk year after year. You know he was drunk tonight.
Luella, we all know about Mr. Stimson, and we all know about the troubles he's been through. And Dr. Ferguson knows too. And if Dr. Ferguson keeps him on in his job, the only thing the rest of us can do is just not notice.
not to notice it. But it's getting worse.
Oh, it isn't, Luella. It's getting better. I've been in that choir twice as long as you have. It doesn't happen near so often. Oh, I hate to go to bed on a night like this. Better hurry. Those children will be sitting up till all hours. Good night, Luella.
Can you get home safe, Luella?
Oh, it's bright as day. I can see Mr. Soames scowling at the window now. But you'd think we'd been to a dance the way the men folk carry on.
Well, we had a good time.
You're late enough.
Why, Frank, it ain't any later than usual.
And you stopping at the corner to gossip with a lot of hens.
Now, Frank, don't be grouchy. Come out and smell the heliotrope in the moonlight. Isn't that wonderful? What did you do all this time I was away?
Oh, I read as usual. What were the girls gossiping about tonight?
Well, believe me, Frank, there was something to gossip about.
Mm-hmm. Simon Stimson, far gone, was he?
Worst I've ever seen him. How will that end, Frank? Dr. Ferguson can't forgive him forever.
I guess I know more about Simon Stimson's affairs than anybody in this town. Some people ain't made for small town life. I don't know how that'll end, but there's nothing we can do but just leave it alone. Now, come on, get in.
No, not yet, Frank. Frank, I'm worried about you.
What you worried about?
Well, I think it's my duty to make plans for you to get a real rest and change. And if I get that legacy, well, I'm just going to insist on it.
Now, Julia, there's no sense in going over that again. Just
Frank, you are being unreasonable.
oh, come on, Julia, it's getting late. First thing, no, you'll catch cold. I gave George a piece of my mind tonight. I reckon you'll have your wood chopped for a while anyway. No, you get upstairs right now.
Dear, always so many things to pick up, seems like. You know, Frank, Mrs. Fairchild always locks her front door every night. All those people in that part of town do.
They're all getting cityfied. That's the trouble with them. They haven't got nothing fit to burgle, and everybody knows it.
Get out, Rebecca. There's only room for one at this window.
Well, let me just look a
We're
minute.
spoiling everything.
Just let me look a minute.
Use your own window.
I did, but there's no moon there. George, do you know what I think, do you? I think that maybe the moon's getting nearer and nearer, and there'll be a big explosion.
Rebecca, you don't know anything. Look, if the moon were getting nearer, the guys that sit up all night with telescopes would see it first and they'd tell about it, and it'd be in all the newspapers.
George, is the moon shining on South America, Canada, and half the whole world?
Well, it probably is.
It's 9:30 now. Most of the lights are out. No, there's Constable Warren trying a few doors on Main Street. Here comes Editor Webb after putting his newspaper to bed.
Good evening, Bill.
Evening, Mr. Webb.
Quite a move.
Yep.
All quiet tonight?
Well, Simon Stimson's rolling around a little. Just saw his wife moving out to hunt for him, so I looked the other way. Oh, there he is now. Good evening, Simon. Town seems to have settled down for the night pretty well.
Yes, most of the town settled down for the night, Simon. Guess we better do the same. Can I walk along a ways with you? Good night.
I don't know how that's going to end, Mr. Webb.
Yeah, he's seen a peck of trouble. One thing after the other. Oh, Bill, if you see my boy smoking cigarettes, just give him a word, will you? He thinks a lot of you, Bill.
I don't think he smokes no cigarettes, Mr. Webb. Leastways not more than 2 or 3 a year.
Yeah, I hope not. Good night, Bill.
Good night, Mr. Webb.
Who's that up there? Is that you, Myrtle?
No, it's me, Papa.
Well, why aren't you in bed?
I don't know. I just can't sleep yet, Papa. The moonlight is so wonderful. And the smell of Mrs. Gibbs' heliotrope, can you smell it?
Yes. You haven't any troubles on your mind, have you, Emily?
Troubles, Papa? No.
Well, enjoy yourself. And don't let your mother catch you. Good night, Emily.
Good night, Papa.
I never told you about the letter Jane Crowfoot got from her minister when she was sick. He wrote Jane a letter, and on the envelope, the address was like this. It said, Jane Crowfoot, the Crowfoot Farm, Grover's Corner, Sutton County, New Hampshire, United States of America.
Well, what's funny about that?
But listen, it's not finished. The United States of America, continent of North America, Western Hemisphere, the Earth, the solar system, the universe, the mind of God. That's what it said on the envelope.
Well, what do you know?
And the postman brought it just the same.
Well, what do you know?
And that's the end of the first act, folks. Let's move on to Act 2. 3 years have gone by. Yes, the sun's come up over 1,000 times. Summers and winters have cracked the mountains a little bit more, and the rains have brought down some of the dirt. Some babies that weren't even born before are talking regular sentences now. And a number of people who thought that they were right and spry and young have noticed that they can't bound up a flight of stairs like they used to without their heart fluttering a little bit. All that can happen in 1,000 days. Nature's been pushing and contriving in other ways too. A number of young people fell in love. They got married. Yes, the mountains got bit away a few fractions of an inch. Millions of gallons of water went by the mill, and here and there a new home was set up under a roof. Almost everybody in the world gets married. In our town, there are hardly any exceptions. Most everybody in the world climbs into their graves married. The first act was called The Daily Life. This act is called Love and Marriage. There's another act coming after this one. I reckon you can guess what that's about. So, it's 3 years later, 1904. It's July 7th, just after high school commencement. That's the time most of our young people jump up and get married. As soon as they pass their last exams, solid geometry and Cicero's orations, looks like they suddenly feel themselves fit to be married. It's early morning. Only this time it's been raining, it's been pouring, thundering. Mrs. Gibbs' garden, Mrs. Webb's here, drenched. All those bean poles and pea vines, drenched. All yesterday over there on Main Street, the rain looked like it was curtains being blown around. Could start any minute again. Ah, there, you hear that? 5:45 for Boston. And there's Mrs. Gibbs and Mrs. Webb come right down to make breakfast, just as though it were an ordinary day. Now, I don't have to point out to the women in my audience that those ladies that they see before them, both of those ladies, cooked 3 meals a day. One of them for 20 years, the other for 40. No summer vacation. They brought up 2 children apiece. They washed, cleaned the house. Never and never a nervous breakdown. Like one of those Middle Western poets said, you've got to love life to have life. And you've got to have life to love life. It's what they call a vicious circle.
Get up, Missy.
Here comes Howie Newsom delivering the milk. There's Cy Crowell delivering the papers, just like his brother before him.
Morning, Howie.
Morning, Si. Hey, anything in the papers I ought to know?
Nothing much except we're losing about the best baseball pitcher Grover's Corners ever had. George Gibbs.
Ooh, reckon he is.
He could hit and run bases too.
Yeah, mighty fine ball player. Whoa! Bessie, hey, listen, I can stop and talk if I have a mind too.
I just don't see how he could give up a thing like that just to get married. Would you, Howie?
Oh, you can't tell, Si. Never had no talent that way. Hey, you're up early, Bill.
Now, seeing if there's anything I can do to prevent the flood. River's been rising all night.
Si Crowell's all worked up here about George Gibbs retiring from baseball.
Yes, sir. That's the way it goes. Back in '84, we had a player, Si. Even George Gibbs couldn't touch him. Name of Hank Todd. Went down Maine and become a parson. Wonderful ball player. Howie, how does the weather look to you?
Oh, tain't bad. I think maybe it'll clear up for good.
Morning, Howie. Think it's gonna rain again?
Morning, Miss Gibbs. Now, rain's so heavy, I think maybe it'll clear up.
Certainly hope it will.
How much you want today?
Well, I'm gonna have a house full of relations, so it looks to me like I'll need 3 of milk and 2 of cream.
My wife says to tell you, we both hope they'll be very happy, Miss Gibbs. No, they will.
Thanks a lot, Howie. Tell your wife I hope she gets down there to the wedding.
Oh, yeah, she'll be there. She'll be there if she can. Oh, morning, Miss Webb.
Morning, Mr. Newsom. I told you 4 quarts of milk, but I hope you can spare me another.
Oh, yes, and 2 of the cream?
Let's start rating again, Mr. Newsom.
Well, just saying to Miss Gibbs how it may lighten up. Miss Newsom told me to tell you, it's how we both hope they'll be very happy, Miss Webb. No, they will.
Thank you. And thank Mrs. Newsom, and we're counting on seeing you at the wedding.
Yes, Miss Webb. We hope to get there. Couldn't miss that. Come on, Bessie.
Well, Ma, the day has come. You're losing one of your chicks.
Frank Gibbs, don't say another word to me. I feel like crying every minute. Sit down and drink your coffee.
Oh, the groom's up there shaving himself, only there ain't an awful lot to shave, whistling and singing like he's glad to leave us. Every now and then he says, I do, right to the mirror. But it don't sound convincing to me.
I declare, Frank, I don't know how he'll get along. I have arranged his clothes and seen to it that he puts on warm things. And Frank, they're too young. Emily won't think of such things. He'll catch his death of cold in a week.
Yeah, I was remembering my wedding morning, Julia.
Now, don't start that, Frank Gibbs.
I was the scaredest fella in the state of New Hampshire. I thought I'd made a mistake for sure. And when I saw you coming down that aisle, I thought you were the prettiest girl I'd ever seen. But the only trouble was that I'd never seen you before. There I was in Congregational Church, marrying a total stranger.
And how do you think I felt? Frank, weddings are perfectly awful things.
Yeah.
Farces, that's what they are.
Yeah.
Here, I've made something for you.
Why, Julia Hersey, French toast.
To make, had to do something.
How'd you sleep last night, Julia?
Well, I heard a lot of hours struck off.
Yeah, I get a shock every time I think of George setting out to be a family man. That great gangling thing. I tell you, Julia, there's nothing so terrifying in the world as a son. The relation of a father and son is the darndest, awkwardest sort
Well,
of
mother and daughter is no picnic either, let me tell you.
They'll have a lot of troubles. But that's none of our business. Everybody has a right to their own troubles.
Yep. People meant to go through life 2 by 2. It ain't natural to be lonesome.
Julia, you know, one of the things I was scared of when I married you,
Oh, go along with you.
I was afraid we wouldn't have material for conversation more than last a few weeks. I was afraid we'd run out and eat our meals in silence. That's a fact. Well, you and I have been conversing for 20 years now without any noticeable bearing spells.
Well, good weather, bad weather.
Yeah.
Very choice, but I always find something to say.
Yeah.
Did you hear Rebecca stirring around up there?
No. Only day of the year Rebecca hasn't been managing everybody's business up there. She's hiding in a room. Got the impression she's crying.
Lord's sake, this has got to stop. Rebecca! Rebecca! Come down, get your breakfast.
Good morning, everybody. Only 5 more hours to live.
Gibbs, where are you going?
I'm just stepping across the grass to see my girl.
Now, George, you put on your overshoes. It's raining torrents. You don't go out of the house without you're prepared for it.
No, it's just a step.
George, you'll catch a death of cold and cough all through the service.
George, do as your mother tells you.
From tomorrow on, you can kill yourself in all weathers, but while you're at my house, you'll live wisely. Thank you very much. Maybe Mrs. Webb isn't used to callers at 7 in the morning. Here, take a cup of coffee with you.
I will be just 1 minute. Good morning, Mother Webb.
Oh, goodness, you frightened me. Now, George, you can come in a minute out of the wet, but you know I can't ask you in.
Well, why not?
Oh, George, you know as well as I do, the groom can't see his bride on his wedding day, not until he sees her in church.
Oh, no, that's just a superstition. Oh, good morning, Mr. Webb.
Good morning, George.
Now, Mr. Webb, you don't believe in that superstition now, do you?
There's a lot of common sense in some superstitions, George.
Millions have followed it, George. You don't want to be the first to fly in the face of custom.
Well, how is Emily?
She hasn't waked up yet. I haven't heard a sound out of her.
Emily is asleep?
Well, no wonder. We were up till all hours sewing and packing. Now, I'll tell you what I'll do. You sit down here a minute with Mr. Webb and drink this cup of coffee. I'll go upstairs and see if she doesn't come down and surprise you. There's some bacon too, but don't be long about it.
Well, George, how are you?
Oh, I'm fine. I'm fine. Hey, Mr. Webb, what sense could there be in a superstition like that?
Well, you see, on her wedding morning, a girl's head's apt to be full of clothes and one thing and another. Don't you think that's probably it?
Yeah, well, I guess I never thought of that.
Girl's apt to be a mite bit nervous on her wedding day.
You know, I wish a fella could get married without all that marching up and down.
Well, every man that's ever lived has felt that way about it, George. But it hasn't been any use. It's the women folk who have built up weddings, my boy. For a while now, the women have it all on their own. Man looks pretty small at a wedding, George. All those good women standing shoulder to shoulder. making sure the knot's tied in a mighty public way.
But you do believe in it, don't you, Mr. Webb?
Oh, yes, yes, oh, yes. Don't you misunderstand me, my boy. Marriage is a wonderful thing, wonderful thing. Don't you forget that, George.
No, sir. Hey, Mr. Webb, how old were you when you got married?
Well, see, I'd been to college and I'd taken a little time to get settled. But Mrs. Webb, she wasn't much older than what Emily is. No, age hasn't much to do with things, George, not compared with other things.
What were you going to say, Mr. Webb?
Oh, I don't know. Was I going to say something? George, I was thinking the other night of some advice that my father gave me when I got married. Charles, he said, Charles, start out early, showing him who's boss, he said. Best thing to do is give an order, even if it don't make sense, just so she'll learn to obey. And he said, if anything about your wife irritates you, her conversation or anything, just get up and leave the house. That'll make it clear to her, he said. And, oh yes, and he also said, never let your wife know how much money you have. Never.
Well, Mr. Webb, I don't know if I could.
So I took the exact opposite of my father's advice, and I've been happy ever since. And let that be a lesson to you, George. Never ask advice on personal matters. George, are you going to raise chickens on your farm?
What?
Are you going to raise chickens on your farm?
Chickens. Well, Uncle Luke's never been much interested, but I thought that it might be nice.
Came into my office the other day, George, on the philo system of raising chickens. I want you to read it. And I'm thinking of beginning in a small way in the backyard and going to put an incubator in the cellar.
Oh, Charles, are you talking about the old incubator again? I thought you two'd be talking about things worthwhile.
Well, Myrtle, if you want to give the boy some good advice, I'll go upstairs and leave you alone with him.
George, Emily's got to come downstairs and eat her breakfast. She sends you her love, but she doesn't want to lay eyes on you. Goodbye.
Oh, that's fine. Goodbye.
Myrtle, I guess you don't know about that older superstition.
What do you mean, Charles?
Since the cavemen, no bridegroom should see his father-in-law on the day of the wedding or near it. Now remember that.
Thank you very much, Mr. and Mrs. Webb. I appreciate it. Now I have to interrupt here again. You see, we want to know how all this began. This wedding, this plan to spend a lifetime together. I'm awfully interested in how big things begin. You know how it is. 21, 22, you make some decisions and whoosh, you're 70. You've been a lawyer for 50 years. The white-haired lady at your side has eaten over 50,000 meals with you. How do such things begin? Well, George and Emily are going to show you now the conversation that they had when they first knew that, well, as the saying goes, that they were meant for one another. But before they do it, I want you to try to remember what it was like when you were very young, and particularly the days when you were first in love, when you were like a person sleepwalking. You didn't quite see the street that you were in, and you didn't quite hear everything that was said to you. You were really just a little crazy. Will you remember that, please? Now, they'll be coming out of high school at 3 o'clock. George has just been elected president of the junior class. And it's June, which means he'll be president of the senior class all next year. Emily's just been elected secretary and treasurer, and I don't have to tell you how important that is.
Oh, I can't, Louise. I've got to go home. Goodbye. Oh, Ernestine, can you come over tonight and do Latin? I know, isn't that Cicero just the worst thing? Well, tell your mother that you have to. Goodbye, Helen. Bye, Fred.
Can I carry your books home for you, Emily?
Well, thank you. It isn't far.
Oh, excuse me a minute, Emily. Hey, say, Bob, if I'm a little late, start practice without me. And give Herb some long, high ones.
Goodbye, Lizzie.
Goodbye, Lizzie. You know, I'm awful glad that you got elected too, Emily.
Thank you.
Hey, Emily, why are you mad at me?
I'm not mad at you.
Well, you've been treating me funny lately.
Well, since you asked me, then I might as well say it right out, George. Oh, goodbye, Miss Corcoran.
Goodbye, Miss Corcoran. What? What is it?
I don't like the whole change that's come over you in the last year. I'm sorry if that hurts your feelings, but I gotta just tell you the truth and shame the devil.
A change? Well, what do you mean?
Well, up to a year ago, I used to like you a lot. And I used to watch you as you did everything, you know, because we'd been friends for so long. Then you began spending all your time at baseball, and you never stopped to speak to anybody anymore. Not even your own family, you didn't. And George, it's a fact, you have got conceited and real stuck up. And all the girls say it. They may not say so to your face, but that's what they say about you behind your back. And it hurts me to hear them say it, but I gotta agree with them just a little. And I'm sorry if it hurts your feelings. I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry that I said it.
No, I'm glad you said it, Emily. I never thought such a thing was happening to me. I mean, I guess it's hard for a fella not to have some faults creep in his character.
Well, I expect a man to be perfect, and I think that he should be.
Well, I don't think it's possible to be perfect, Emily.
Well, your father is, and as far as I can see my father is, there's no reason on earth why you should not be too.
Well, you know, I feel it's the other way around, that men aren't naturally good, but that, you know, girls are.
Well, you might as well know right now that I am far from perfect. It's not easy for a girl to be perfect as a man because we girls are more nervous. Now, I'm sorry I said all that to you. I don't know what made me say it. I'm sorry.
Emily.
No, now I can see that it's not the truth at all. And suddenly I feel that it isn't important anyway.
Emily, would you like an ice cream soda or something before you go home?
Well, thank you. I would.
Hello, Mr. Morgan.
Hello, George. Hello, Emily. What'll you have? Why, Emily Webb, what have you been crying about?
Oh, well, she just got an awful scare, Mr. Morgan. She almost got run over by that hardware store wagon. Everybody says that Tom Huckins, whoo, he drives like a crazy man.
Well, now, you take a drink of water, Emily. You look all shook up. I tell you, you've got to look both ways before you cross Main Street these days. Gets worse every year. What'll you have?
I'll have a strawberry phosphate, Mr. Morgan.
Oh, no, Emily, have an ice cream soda with me. Make that 2 strawberry ice cream sodas, Mr. Morgan.
2 strawberry ice cream sodas? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. There are 125 horses in Grover's Corners this minute I'm talking to you. State inspector was in here yesterday, and now they're bringing in these automobiles. The best thing to do is to just stay home. Why, I can remember when a dog could go to sleep all day in the middle of Main Street and nothing would come along to disturb him. There they are. Enjoy them. Yes, Mrs. Ellis, what can I do for you?
They're so expensive.
Oh, no, no, no. Now, Emily, don't you think of that. We are celebrating our election. And then do you know what else I'm celebrating?
No.
Well, I'm celebrating because I've got a friend who tells me all the things that ought to be told me.
George, please don't think of that. I don't know why I said it. It's not true.
No, Emily, now listen, now you stick to it. I'm glad you spoke to me like you did. All right, but you'll see. I'm going to change so quick. You bet I'm going to change. And Emily, I want to ask you a favor.
What?
Emily, if I go away to State Agriculture College next year, would you write me a letter every once in a while?
Oh, I certainly will. I certainly will, George. It certainly seems like being away for 3 years, you get out of touch with things. Maybe letters from Grover's Corners wouldn't be so interesting after a while. Grover's Corners isn't a very important place when you think of all of New Hampshire, but I think it's a very nice town.
And there will come when I wouldn't want to know everything that's happening here. I know that's true, Emily.
Well, I'll try to make my letters interesting.
You know, Emily, whenever I meet a farmer, I ask him if he thinks it's important to go to agriculture school to be a good farmer.
Why, George?
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, some of them say that it's even a waste of time because you can get all those things anyway out of the pamphlets the government sends out. And, you know, Uncle Luke is getting old and he's about ready for me to start taking over his farm tomorrow if I could.
My.
And it's like you say, I mean, being gone all that time in other places and meeting other people. Gosh, I mean, if anything like that could happen, I don't want to go away. I guess new people aren't any better than old ones. You know, I bet they mostly never are. And Emily, I feel that you're as good a friend as I've got. I don't need to go and meet the people in other towns.
Oh, but George, maybe it's very important for you to go and learn all about that cattle judging and soils and those sorts of things. Of course, I don't know.
Emily, you know what? I'm going to make up my mind right now. I won't go. I'm going to tell Pa about it tonight.
Why, George, I don't see why you have to decide right now. It's a whole year away.
Emily, now look, I'm glad you spoke to me about that fault in my character. And what you said was right, but there was one thing wrong in it. And that was when you said that for a year, now I wasn't noticing people. And you, for instance, while you say you were watching me when I did everything, well, I was doing the same about you all the time. Why, sure, I always thought about you as one of the chief people that I thought about. And I always made sure where you were sitting in the bleachers and who you were with. And for 3 days now, I've been trying to walk home with you, but something's always got in the way. Well, yesterday I was standing over against the wall waiting for you, and you walked home with Miss Corcoran.
George, that was awful funny. How could I have known that? Why, I thought that
Listen,
you
Emily,
were.
now listen, I'm going to tell you why I am not going to agriculture school. I think that once you found a person that you are fond of, and I mean a person who is fond of you too, and who likes you enough to be interested in your character, well, I think that's just as important as college is. And even more so is what I think.
I think it's awfully important too.
Emily.
Yes, it's George.
Emily, if I do improve and I make a big change, would you be, I mean, could you be?
I am now. I always have been.
Well, then I guess this is a pretty important talk that we've been having.
Yes.
Here, why don't you wait for me 10 minutes and I'll walk you home. Mr. Morgan, I'm gonna have to go home and get the money to pay you for this. It'll only take a minute.
What's that? George Gibbs, you mean to tell me that you're not...
Yes, but I had my reasons, Mr. Morgan. Now look, now here is my gold watch to keep until I come back with the money.
That's all right. Keep your watch. I'll trust you.
It'll just be 5 minutes.
I'll trust you 10 years, George. Not a day over. You got all over your shock, Emily?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Morgan. It was nothing.
I'm ready.
Well, now we're ready to get on with the wedding. There are a lot of things to be said about a wedding. There are a lot of thoughts that go on during a wedding. And we can't get them all into one wedding, naturally, especially not into a wedding at Grover's Corners, where they're awfully plain and short. In this wedding, I play the minister, and that gives me the right to say a few more things about it. For a while now, the play gets pretty serious. You see, some churches say that marriage is a sacrament. I don't quite know what that means, but I can guess. Like Mrs. Gibbs said a few minutes ago, people were made to live 2 by 2. This is a good wedding. But people are so put together that even at a good wedding, there's a lot of confusion, way down deep inside people's minds. And we thought that ought to be in our play too. Now, the real hero of this scene isn't on the stage at all. And you know who that is. It's like what one of those European fellows said: every child born into the world is nature's attempt to make a perfect human being. Well, we've seen nature pushing and contriving for some time now. We all know that nature's interested in quantity, but I think she's interested in quality also. And that's why I'm in the ministry. And don't forget all the other witnesses at this wedding. The ancestors. Millions. Millions and millions of them. Most of them set out to live 2 by 2 as well. Millions of them. Well, that's my sermon. 'Twa'n't very long anyway.
I don't know why on earth I should be crying. I suppose there's nothing to cry about. Came over me at breakfast this morning. There was Emily eating her breakfast as she's done for 17 years, and now she's going off to eat it in someone else's house. I suppose that's it. And Emily, she suddenly said, "I can't eat another mouthful," and she put her head down on the table and she cried. Oh, I've got to say it. There's something downright cruel about sending our girls out into marriage this way. I hope some of her girlfriends told her some things. I know it's cruel, but I couldn't bring myself to say anything. I went into it blind as a bat myself. The whole world's wrong. That's what's the matter. Oh, there they come.
Hey, George! George, look at him, fellas. He looks scared to death.
George, don't you look so innocent, you old geezer.
Yeah, we know what you're thinking.
Don't you disgrace the team, big boy.
All right, that'll do. And that's enough of that. Go on with you. There used to be an awful lot of that sort of thing around weddings in the old days. Rome and later. We're more civilized now, they say.
George, what's the matter?
I don't want to grow old. Why is everybody pushing me so?
Why, George, you wanted it.
Ma, listen to me. Listen.
No, George, you are a man now.
Listen, Ma, all right? For the last time, I ask you, all I want to do is just be a fella.
George, if anyone should hear you. Now stop. I'm ashamed of you.
What? Hey, say, where's Emily?
George, you gave me such a turn.
Oh, cheer up, Ma. I'm getting married.
Let me catch my breath.
Now, Ma, listen. You have to save Thursday nights. Emily and I are coming over to dinner every Thursday night. You'll see. Hey. Ma, what are you crying for? Oh, come on, Ma. Now we got to get ready for this.
Oh, I never felt so alone in my whole life. And George over there looking so, oh God, I hate him. I wish he were dead. Papa.
Emily, Emily. Now don't get upset.
But Papa, I don't want to get married.
Shh. Emily, everything is all right.
Why can't I just stay for a while, just as I am? Let's just go away.
No, Emily, now stop and think for a minute.
No, don't you remember that you used to say all the time, you used to say, all the time you said that I was your girl. And there must be lots of places that we can go. I'll work for you. I could keep house.
Shh, Emily, you mustn't think of such things. You're just nervous. Emily, George! Will you come here a minute, please? Why, you are marrying the best young fellow in the world. George is a fine fellow.
Oh, but Papa.
I'm giving away my daughter, George. Do you think you can take care of her?
Mr. Webb, I want to try. Now, Emily, I'm going to do my best. I love you, Emily. I need you.
Well, if you love me, then help me. All I want is someone to love me.
I will, Emily. Emily, I'll try.
And I mean forever. Do you hear? I mean forever and ever.
Come! They're waiting for us. Now you know it'll be all right. Come quick.
You, George, take this woman, Emily, to be your wedded wife. To have
Perfectly lovely wedding. Loveliest wedding I ever saw. Oh, I do love a good wedding, don't you? Doesn't she make the loveliest bride?
I do.
Do you, Emily, take this man, George, to be your wedded husband?
I don't know when I have seen such a lovely wedding, but I always cry. I don't know why it is. I just always cry. Yeah, I just like to see young people happy, don't you? Oh, I just think it's lovely.
Yeah.
I've married over 200 couples in my day. Do I believe in it? I don't know. M marries N. Millions of them. The cottage, the go-kart, the Sunday afternoon drive, first rheumatism, the grandchildren, the second rheumatism, the deathbed, the reading of the will. Once in 1,000 times. It's interesting.
Oh!
Let's have the wedding march.
Oh, aren't they a lovely couple? Oh, I've never been to such a nice wedding. I'm sure they'll be happy. I always say, happiness, that's the great thing. The important thing is to be happy.
Well, that's all there is for the second act, folks. 10 minutes intermission.
Hello again. All right, folks, so that is our 10-minute intermission. I'm going to give everybody a few minutes to get up, stretch, get something to drink, get a snack. We have one last act, the most beautiful act in the play, and it will be starting in 10 minutes. I'm going to log off for just a moment, get up and stretch too. And I'll be back in just a few minutes. And like I said, I will answer any questions that I see posted in the question answer section on the Zoom webinar or on the YouTube channel itself. So we'll be back in just a few minutes, folks. Hi there, folks. So we have just a few more minutes of intermission left, and so I thought I'd come back on. There were a couple questions left that I can answer now. Again, feel free to leave questions in the question and answer section on the Zoom webinar itself, or you can leave your comments on the YouTube page if you're joining us on YouTube. I would like to extend a very quick. Bobby is actually watching, and she noticed the snowman on a shelf behind Scott Harris, who's actually my husband, playing the constable, and also Professor Willard. That snowman is very significant. There's two of them. One represents my grandma, and one represents my grandpa. And after they passed away, the whole family got these snowmen. So they're on our memory shelf in our bedroom. So hi, Bobby. I'm glad that you're watching. Another question I had was, how often was the entire cast able to rehearse as a group? Assuming you were. It's a very great question. We actually only met a couple times. So we had our very first read last Saturday. We read for the first time together as a cast. I was able to give some brief notes, not much. Now, when we say I directed this play, these folks, these actors are so ridiculously talented. There wasn't very much directing I actually had to do. So we did a read last Saturday, and we actually had another rehearsal last night. And that's the only time we've been together as a group, actually. And so as you can imagine, a lot of the actors helping us out tonight to benefit Frostig are very, very busy. And I'm just so very, very grateful for every minute that I've been able to spend with this cast. And I'm hoping that it is the first project of many that I get to work with all of them. I want to remind everybody again that the reason we are doing this stage reading of Our Town is to benefit the Frostig School in Pasadena. I know all of us are asked to donate and give for so many different causes. I'm asking if you have any money, $20, $50, $100, every little minute penny helps, right? We all know the old adage of there are strength in numbers. And if many people are able to donate smaller amounts, it gives the same weight and strength to any foundation. So again, there is a link to donate to the Frostig School in the YouTube description, and also in the description on this webinar there is a donation link. If you can't find it, you can always visit the website, the frostig.org, frostig.org. Again, it is a non-profit organization, so all of your donations are tax refundable. So it's a very, very great cause. I see how I got another question is, how did you all get an idea for the Zoom? It's working fantastically. Oh, thank God it's working fantastically. I'll be honest with you. I had said to the cast, I wasn't nervous one iota about their actual performances tonight because, as I said, they're phenomenal actors. But I am very nervous and am still nervous about being on live technology. I saw a few of my friends performing in plays. Oh, I got the thumbs up that the actors are in their places. I'll finish this question briefly, but I saw some of my friends performing in some plays, and I saw that they were doing it on Zoom, and it dawned on me, to be quite honest with you, during this pandemic, as we all know, sporting events, concerts, and yes, live theater are going to be something that is built into our society again way further down the pike. So this is a way for artists and for theater to survive. So as I said, I'm hoping that this is really well received and we actually will have the opportunity to continue to bring stories to you. It is important in any culture to keep the arts alive. During this pandemic, obviously, our first priority should always be the health and safety of our families. And so crowding together in a theater right now is not something that we're going to be able to do for a while. So I'm very thankful that all of you are joining us tonight. Again, whether you're on Zoom or you're watching us on the YouTube live link. So keep those questions coming, folks. And again, after the show, we have one more act to go, and it is a breathtakingly beautiful act. I am thankful that you're all sticking with the production. This final act really brings the show full circle, and it's brilliantly acted. So with that being said, I do know that the actors are in their places and that we are ready to resume the show. And again, to stay on after the production for about a 15-minute live Q&A with the entire cast. So go ahead and put lots of questions in that Q&A section and we will get them answered at the end of the show. So without further ado, I give us back to the stage manager to begin Act 3 of Our Town.
Act 3. This time, 9 years have gone by, friends. Summer 1913. Gradual changes in Grover's Corners. Horses are getting rarer. Farmers coming into town in Fords. Everybody locks their house doors now at night. Ain't been any burglaries in town yet, but everybody's heard about them. You'd be surprised, though. On the whole, things don't change very much around here. This is certainly an important part of Grover's Corners. It's on a hilltop, a windy hilltop. Lots of sky, lots of clouds, often lots of sun and moons and stars. You come up here on a fine afternoon and you can see range on range of hills, awful blue they are, up there by Lake Sunapee, Lake Winnipesaukee over there. And way up, if you got a glass, you can see the White Mountains in Mount Washington, where North Conway and Conway is. And of course, our favorite mountain, Mount Monadnock, it's right there. And all these towns that lie around it, Jaffrey and East Jaffrey and Peterborough and Dublin. And they are quite a ways down, way down there, Grover's Corners. It's a beautiful spot up here. Mountain laurels, lilacs. I often wonder why people like to be buried in Woodlawn and Brooklyn when they can pass the same time right here in New Hampshire. Over there, those are the old stones, 1670, 1680. Strong-minded people. Come a long way to be independent. Some people walk around here laughing at all the funny words on the tombstones. It don't do any harm. And the genealogists come up from Boston, get paid by the city people to look up their ancestors. They want to make sure that they're the daughters of the American Revolution on the Mayflower. Well, I guess that don't do any harm either. Whenever you come near the human race, there are layers and layers of nonsense. Now over there are some Civil War veterans, iron flags on those graves, New Hampshire boys that had a notion that the Union ought to be kept together, though they'd never seen more than 50 miles of it themselves. All they knew was the name, friends, the United States of America. The United States of America. And they went and died about it. This here is the new part of the cemetery. Here's your friend, Mrs. Gibbs, right here. And let me see, well, there's Simon Stimson, organist at the Congregational Church. And there's Mrs. Soames. She enjoyed the wedding so much, you remember. Oh, lots of others are here. Editor Webb's boy, Wallace, whose appendix burst while he was on a Boy Scout trip. Crawford Notch. Yes, awful lot of sorrow has sort of quieted down up here. People just wild with grief have brought their relatives up on this hill, and we know how it is. And then time, and sunny days, and rainy days, and snow. Well, we're glad that they're in such a beautiful place. And we're coming up here ourselves when our fit's over. Now, there are some things that we know, but we don't take them out and look at them very often. We all know that something is eternal. It ain't houses, not names. It ain't even the earth. It's not even the stars. Everybody knows in their bones, though, that something is eternal. And that something has to do with human beings. All the greatest people that have ever lived have been telling us this for 5,000 years, and yet you'd be surprised how many people are always losing a hold of it. There's something way down deep that's eternal about every human being. You know as well as I do that the dead don't stay interested in us living people for very long. Gradually, they lose hold of the earth and the ambitions that they had and the people they loved. They get weaned away from the earth. That's the way I put it, weaned away. And then they stay here, up here, while the earth part of them burns away, just burns out. And all that time, they slowly get indifferent to what's going on in Grover's Corners. They're waiting. They're waiting for something that they feel is coming, something important and something great. Aren't they waiting for the eternal part of themselves to come out clear? Now, some of the things you're going to hear will maybe hurt your feelings, but that's the way it is. Mother and daughter, husband and wife, enemy and enemy, money and miser, all those terribly important things. They all kind of grow pale up around here. And what's left when your memory's gone and your identity, Mrs. Smith? Well, here's some living people. There's Joe Stoddard, our undertaker, supervising a new made grave. And here comes Grover's Corners boy. He left, went out west. He's back now.
Good afternoon, Joe Stoddard.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Let me see now. Do I know you?
I'm Sam Craig.
Oh, gracious sakes alive, of all people. I should have known you'd be back for the funeral. You've been away a long time, Sam.
Yes, been away for 12 years now. I'm in business out in Buffalo now, Joe. But I was in the East when I got news of my cousin's death, so I thought I'd combine things a little and come and see the old home. You look well.
Yes. Can't complain. Very sad our journey today, Samuel.
Yes.
Yes. I always say I hate to supervise when a young person is taken. They'll be here in a few minutes now. Had to come in early today. My son's supervising at the home.
Old Farmer McCarty. I used to do chores for him after school. He had the lumbago.
Oh, yes. We brought Father McCarty here a number of years ago now.
That's my Aunt Julia. I'd forgotten that she'd... Of course.
Yes. Doc Gibbs lost his wife 2-3 years ago about this time. Today is another pretty bad blow for him, too.
That's my sister Carrie's boy, Sam Craig.
I'm always uncomfortable when they're around.
Simon.
Do they write their own verses much, Joe?
No, not usual. Mostly the bereaved pick a verse.
Well, that doesn't sound like my Aunt Julia. There are many of those Hersey sisters left now. Hey, let me see. I was hoping to see my mothers and fathers while I was here.
Over there, with the Craigs, Avenue F.
Simon Stimson. He was an organist at church. Drank a lot, we used to say.
Well, nobody was supposed to know about that. He'd seen a peck of trouble. Took his own life, you know.
Did he?
Hung himself in the attic. They tried to hush it up, but of course it got around. He chose his own epitaph. Oh, you can see it there. Not exactly a verse.
That's just some notes of music. What's it mean?
I wouldn't know. It was wrote up in the Boston papers at the time.
Joe, what did she die of?
Who?
My cousin.
Oh, didn't you know? Had some trouble bringing a baby into the world. 'Twas her second, though. There's a little boy about 4 years old.
Grave's gonna be over there?
Yeah. There ain't much more room over here among the Gibbses. So they're opening up a whole new Gibbs section over by Avenue B. If you'll excuse me now, I see him coming.
Who is it, Julia?
My daughter-in-law, Emily Webb.
Well, I declare. Road up here must have been awful muddy. What did she die of, Julia?
Childbirth.
Childbirth. Whew. I'd forgotten all about that. My, wasn't life awful. And wonderful.
Wonderful, was it?
Simon, now remember.
I remember Emily's wedding. Wasn't it a lovely wedding? And I remember her reading the class poem at graduation exercises. Emily was one of the brightest girls ever graduated from high school. I remember Principal Wilkins say so time after time. I called on them at their farm just before I died. Perfectly beautiful farm.
It's on the same road we lived on.
Yep, right smart farm.
Oh, I always liked that hymn. I was hoping they'd sing a hymn.
Hello.
Hello, Emily.
Hello, Miss Gibbs.
Hello, Mother Gibbs.
Hello, Emily.
Hello. Oh, it's raining.
Yes. They'll be gone soon, dear. Just rest yourself.
Gosh, it seems thousands and thousands of years since Oh, Papa remembered that was my favorite hymn. Oh, I wish I had been there a long time. I don't like being new here. How do you do, Mr. Stimpson?
How do you do, Emily?
Oh, Mother Gibbs, George and I we've made that farm into just the best place you ever saw. We thought of you all the time. We wanted to show you the new barn and the great long cement drinking fountain for the stock. We bought that out of the money you left us.
I did?
Well, don't you remember, Mrs. Gibbs? The legacy you left us. Why, it was over $350.
Yes, yes, Emily.
Oh, well, there's a patent device on the drinking fountain so that it never overflows, Mother Gibbs, and it never sinks down below a certain mark that they have there. Oh, it is just so fine. It won't be the same to George without me, but it is a lovely farm. Five people don't understand, do they?
No, dear, not very much.
They're sort of just shut up in little boxes, aren't they? I feel as though I knew them last 1,000 years ago. Oh, my boy is spending the day at Mrs. Carter's. Oh, Mr. Carter, my boy is spending the day at your house.
See now.
Yes, he just loves it there. Oh, Mother Gibbs, we have a Ford too. Never gives us any trouble. I don't drive it though. Mother Gibbs, when does this feeling go away of being one of them? How long does it?
Shh, shh, dear. Just wait. Be patient.
I know. Well, look, they're finished. They're going. Oh, look. Look, Father Gibbs, he's bringing some of my flowers to you. He looks just like George, doesn't he? Oh, Mother Gibbs, I never realized before how troubled and how in the dark live persons are. Look at him. I loved him so. From morning until night. That's all they are. Troubled.
Cooler than it was.
Yes, the rain's cooled it off a little. Those northeast winds always do the same thing, don't they? If it isn't a rain, it's a 3-day blow.
Oh, but Mother Gibbs, one can go back. One can go back there again, into the living. I feel it. I know it. Why, just then, for a moment, I was thinking about the farm, and for a moment, I was there, and my baby was on my lap, just plain as day.
Yes, of course you can.
Well, I can go back there, and I can live all those days all over again. Why not?
All I can say is, Emily, don't.
But it's true, isn't it? I can go back there and live back there again.
Don't.
Yes, some have tried, but they soon come back here.
Don't do it, Emily.
Oh, Emily, don't. It's not what you think it would be.
Oh, but I won't live over a sad day. I will choose a happy one. I'll choose the first day, the day that I knew I loved George. And why should that be painful?
You not only live it, but you watch yourself living it.
Yes.
And as you watch, you see things that they, down there, they never know. You see the future. You know what's going to happen afterwards.
But is that painful? Why?
That's not the only reason why you shouldn't do it, Emily. When you've been here longer, you'll see that our life here is to forget all that and think only of what's ahead and be ready for what's ahead. When you've been here longer, you'll understand.
Oh, but Mother Gibbs, how can I ever forget that life? It's all I know. It's all I had.
Oh, Emily, it isn't wise. It really isn't.
But it's a thing I must know for myself. I will choose a happy day anyway.
No. At least choose an unimportant day. Choose the least important day in your life. It will be important enough.
Well, then it can't be since I was married or since the baby was born. Well, I can choose a birthday, can I? I choose my 12th birthday.
All right. February 11th, 1899, a Tuesday. Do you want any particular time of day?
Oh, I want the whole day.
All right, we'll begin at dawn. You remember, it had been snowing for several days, but it had stopped the night before, and they had begun clearing the roads. Sun's coming up.
Oh, there's Main Street. Why, that's Mr. Morgan's drugstore before he changed it. And there's the livery stable.
Well, it's 1899, 14 years ago.
Oh, that is the town I knew as a little girl. And look, oh, there is that old white fence that used to be around our house. Oh gosh, I'd forgotten about that. Oh, I love it so. Are they inside?
Yes. Your mother will be coming downstairs in a minute to make breakfast.
Will she?
And you remember, your father had been away for several days. He came back on the early morning train.
No.
Oh, yes, he'd been back to his college to make a speech in Western New York, Clinton.
Oh, look, there's Howie Newsom. There's our policeman. But he's dead. He died.
Whoa, Bessie. Morning, Bill.
Morning, Howie.
You're up early.
Been rescuing a party. Down near froze to death. Down by Polish-town there. Got drunk and lay out in the snowdrifts. Thought he was in bed when I shook him.
Oh, why, there's Joe Crow.
Morning, Mr. Warren. Morning, Howie.
Children, Wally, Emily, time to get up.
Mama, I'm here. Oh, how young Mama looks. I didn't know Mama was ever that young.
You can come dressed by the kitchen fire if you like, but hurry. Oh, good morning, Mr. Newsom. It's cold.
10 below by my barn, Miss Webb.
Woo, think of it. Keep yourself wrapped up.
Mama, I can't find my blue hair ribbon anywhere.
Just open your eyes, dear. That's all. I laid it out for you special. It's on the dresser there. If there were a snake, it would bite you.
Yes, yes.
Good morning, Bill.
Good morning, Mr. Webb. You're up early.
Yes, just been back to my old college in New York State. Been any trouble over here?
Well, I was called up this morning to rescue a Polish fella. Darn near froze to death he was.
Oh, let's get it in the paper.
Twa'n't much.
Papa.
Good morning, Mother.
How'd it go, Charles?
Oh, fine, I guess. I told him a few things. Everything all right here?
Yes, I can't think of anything that's happened special. Been right cold. Howie Newsom says it's 10 below over at his barn.
Yes, well, it's colder than that at Hamilton College. Students' ears are falling off and ain't Christian. Ever have any mistakes in it?
None that I notice. Coffee's ready when you want it. Now, Charles, don't forget, it's Emily's birthday. Did you remember to get her something?
Yes, I got her something here. Where's my girl?
No.
Where's my birthday girl?
Don't interrupt her now, Charles. You can see her at breakfast. She's slow enough as it is. Hurry up, children. It's 7 o'clock now. I don't want to call you again.
Oh, I can't bear it. They're so young and beautiful. Why did they ever have to get old? Mama, I'm here. I'm grown up. I love you all, everything. I can't look at everything hard enough. Can I go in?
If you like.
Good morning, Mama.
Well, now, a very happy birthday to my girl and many happy returns. There's some surprises waiting for you on the kitchen table.
Oh, Mama, you shouldn't have. I can't.
Birthday or no birthday, I want you to eat your breakfast good and slow. I want you to grow up and be a good, strong girl. Now, that in the blue paper is from your Aunt Carrie. I reckon you can guess who brought the postcard album. I found it on the doorstep when I brought in the milk. George Gibbs. Must have come over in the cold pretty early. It's right nice of him.
Oh, George, I've forgotten that.
Now chew that bacon good and slow. It'll keep you warm on a cold day.
Oh, Mama, just look at me for 1 minute as though you really saw me. Mama, 14 years have gone by. I'm dead. You're a grandmother, Mama. I married George Gibbs, Mama. Wally's dead, too. Mama, his appendix burst on a camping trip to North Conway. We felt just terrible about it. Don't you remember? But just for a moment now, we're all together. Mama, just for a moment, we're happy. Let's look at one another.
Now that in the yellow paper is something I found in the attic among your grandmother's things. You're old enough to wear it now, and I thought you'd like it.
And this is from you, Mama. It is just lovely. It's just what I wanted. It's beautiful.
Well, I hoped you would like it. Hunted all over. Your Aunt Nora couldn't find one in Concord, so I had to send all the way to Boston. Now, Wally has something for you too. He made it in manual training class. He's very proud of it. So be sure you make a big fuss about it. Your father has a surprise for you too. I don't know what it is myself. Shh, here he comes.
Where's my girl? Where's my birthday girl?
Oh, I can't go on. I can't. It goes so fast. We don't have time to look at one another. I didn't realize. So all that was going on and we never noticed. Take me back. Up the hill to my grave. But first, wait, one more look. Goodbye. Goodbye, world. Goodbye, Grover's Corners. Mama and Papa. Goodbye to clocks ticking and Mama's sunflowers. And food and coffee, new iron dresses and hot baths and sleeping and waking up. Oh, Earth, you are too wonderful for anyone to realize you. To any human beings that ever realize life while they live it, every minute.
No. The saints, the poets, they do some.
I'm ready to go back.
Were you happy?
No. I should have listened to you. That's all human beings are. Just blind people.
Look, it's clearing up. Stars are coming out.
Oh, Mr. Stimson, I should have listened to them.
Yes. Now you know. Now you know. That's what it was to be alive. To walk about in a cloud of ignorance. To go up and down, trampling on the feeling of those about you. To spend and waste time as though you had 1,000,000 years. To be always at the mercy of one self-centered passion or another. Now you know. That's the happy existence you wanted to go back to. Ignorance and blindness.
Simon Stimson, that ain't the whole truth and you know it. Emily, look at that star. I forget its name.
My boy Joel was a sailor, knew them all. He'd sit on the porch evenings and tell them all by name. Yes, sir. Wonderful.
Star's mighty good company.
Yes. Yes, it is.
Here's one of them coming.
Well, that's funny. Tain't no time for them to be here.
Goodness gracious.
Oh, Mother Gibbs. It's George.
Dear, just rest yourself.
Oh, it's George.
And my boy Joel, who knew the stars, used to say it took millions of years for that speck of light to get to the earth. Don't seem like a body could believe it, That's what he used to say. Millions of years.
Oh, goodness, that ain't no way to behave, falling on your knees like that.
He ought to be home.
Mother Gibbs,
Yes, Emily?
they don't understand, do they?
No, dear, they don't.
Most everybody's asleep in Grover's Corners. There are a few lights on. Shorty Hawkins down at the depot has just watched the Albany train go by, and at the livery stable, somebody's setting up late and talking. And yes, it's clearing up. There are stars doing their old crisscross journeys in the sky. Scholars haven't settled the matter yet, but they seem to think that there are no living beings up there. Just chalk. A fire. Only this one is straining away all the time to make something of itself. The strain's so bad that every 16 hours or so, everybody lies down, gets a rest. There it is, 11 o'clock. Grover's Corners at 11 o'clock. You get a good rest too. Good night.
Hello. Wow. Wow. I tell you, that ending gets me every single time. All right, folks, so this is what we're going to do. We're actually going to turn on some light, and we're going to invite the entire cast to come on with us. So if the cast, you can go ahead and join us for just a few minutes, because we do have a few questions that some folks want answered. First and foremost, let me just take the time to say one last time, my Lord, I am so, so very grateful that you guys all were willing to play with me, and that we all were able to come together for this beautiful cause for Frostig. But even bigger than that, that we were able to have a quiet evening with a group of people who wanted to join us and share one of the most beautiful American plays. So thank you again for being a part of this. I couldn't adore you more. All right, folks, so I am going to pull up some of the questiones that we have. One person, sure, let's ask the cast this. If we could do something different, like another play, what would it be? What other play? Sounds fantastic.
Well, we're a new repertory company right here. Let's do it.
We're going to do a comedy next.
Wait.
Big old comedy.
Yeah, I would have to say, Carmilla, like I said though, Carmilla and I, we are adamant about doing some Hamlet. So Hamlet will be coming down the pike eventually. But I agree, maybe something with some levity would be a very good choice. Let's see here. Somebody says, not a question, but I want to say thank you to the whole production crew, cast, and just everyone involved. This really brightened my quarantine. So that's really, really beautiful. Let me read some more questions. Well, while I'm reading some questions, if you guys have any insight, again, I know that I last read this play, I don't know, maybe 25 so years ago in college, and I really haven't visited it often as an adult. If you guys can give some insight, when was the last time you guys read Our Town? Michael?
Well, I saw my first intro to it when Helen Hunt did it a few years back at Santa Monica College. She was a stage manager, and I had a friend that was in the production. That was my first time seeing it, and that was, 7 years ago? Mm-hmm. And I was pretty much blown away by it then. I had no insights into it until then, so that was a nice way to first experience it.
I did it in high school, and then I did it probably in my 20s. It's in the language is in, it's like tattooed on me. Like Emily's last thing. Although it's interesting how I misremember, and then also there's so much of the stage manager, just this I just was blown away. And John Michael Higgins, I bow down. I mean, like the way that you held us, and the stage manager, it's like preachy but not preachy. It's so deft, and it's like so modern. Like even the way you talk about religion or ministry is like very modern. It just is so timely
and timeless.
Yeah. I actually did have a thought reading this, because again, this is still in the top 10 #1 shows for middle schools and high schools to perform every year since like 1939. And looking
Awesome.
yeah, and it is because obviously there's no set, there's no props. It's a very cheap show to put on, so to speak. But doing it and reading it and having you guys hearing your voices in this, it dawned on me feel this show translates to high schoolers, because I really think you need life experience to truly I mean, that's with any show, but I think with this show in particular, I think, a high schooler and middle school's, point of view of the world is very narrow. And I think this show is truly brought to life when you have some life experience that you can kind of, pad on here. And even just listening to you guys read it, it means so much more, at every stage I'm sure that you're living, whether my stage with 2 young kids versus, when I'm going to be a grandparent, or when maybe my time may be coming to an end. This absolutely would have such a different impact. But I
have a solution. I have a solution. We could all just enroll in high school for the next semester.
Okay.
Just to do the play. No.
David Elfman, you can't play a 16-year-old and be fine with it, and I totally bought it.
No.
Somebody had actually asked, had you considered using backgrounds behind the actors via Zoom, such as kitchens, the graveyard, etc.? I have my thoughts on this. Does anybody else have a thought on this at all before I share my thought on it?
Well, I think the very first thing Thornton Wilder does is say, get rid of the set, because he really wants to strip it bare so that it gets simplified. And it's actually one of the oddest things about this play that often happens. They give high schoolers or middle schoolers masterpieces because they're short, like Heart of Darkness or Turn of the Screw, neither one of which should ever be read by anyone under 50. And this play, because it has lots of parts and no set, and which is all true, but and it actually works quite well, except that this type of simplicity, you really look at the screen in front of you, folks. These are highly skilled actors, and it takes a highly skilled actor to do simplicity. It's very easy to hide behind a lot of noise and jumping up and down. It's a way of hiding yourself, but this play won't let you do it. And the scenes only light up the minute we slow it down and hold, and just what she's saying, just say it. Yeah. And it's all in the theme of the play as well. It's like, he didn't choose a special day, he chose a normal day, and it's very hard to act a normal day, but as Amy was saying, it's just shockingly current all the time because of its simplicity, and as like the stage manager said, when in ancient Pompeii and Greece, people came home, they had dinner, they went to bed, nothing's changed. And nothing will change. This play will go on and on and on and on,
Yeah, I agree. That was brilliant. And I said the same thing. No curtain, no scenery. So I thought having Zoom backgrounds would be very distracting and kind of the antithesis to what Thornton Wilder wanted. Robert asked, was it stressful performing on Zoom? Was it as stressful performing on Zoom as it is on stage?
I think it is stressful. I think because, you know, where your camera light is and when you're reading, it's really hard and to play all of that. So I was having a little flop sweat.
Yeah, I was too. I think it's hard to gauge just in terms of like how things are translating. I think like to me, Mrs. Soames feels very large comparative to the rest of the play. And then it feels even more awkward with like a screen versus a theater space and having the energy of an audience and all those kinds of things. So I think it's
Also, I have a really hard time with the eye contact portion of it because if I'm looking at all of you right now and I'm interacting in my head with the other actors on screen, but I'm looking at you. It's where the camera is. It really weirds me out just kind of in general. So I think that's stressful as well.
Yeah.
I'm curious to know too, because, you know, it's not being edited, it's not being cut back and forth. There's no access issue like you would have in television or in a movie. But from the audience's point of view, is it more effective when there's a dialogue scene where people are looking into the camera, or if we're looking at each other, if it's slightly off the camera? Like, is this off-putting, or is this, does the brain make the connection between this and talking to
you can look
I found it more
into my
interesting.
eyes anytime, David Alpay. I don't mind anytime.
My mom was telling me, look at the camera, because I'm using a Mac and all of you are down here and I need to look at the camera that's up there. So it's like, it's hard.
Well, no, when I was just watching, when you were like looking at the camera was far more effective than when you were looking directly at me. I thought that might be off-putting, but I found that an easier connection.
Yeah. Michael, we actually have a question for you. They said, my whole family loved it. My son would like to know the significance of Mr. Klug's bobblehead collection. That's behind you.
My husband and I are collectors, and this is a very small portion behind me of the massive collection we have. Scott and Christina can attest to this. I have a lot of stuff. And Amy, I wanted to point out to you, I have leftover figures right there. I thought that was kind of, that they were there long before I knew I was doing this, but I'm like, I got to point that out to Amy. There's leftover figures there. So anyway.
I think getting back to the highlight, I think it's so kind of awesome that we didn't settle or even discuss. Like, I kind of was learning from everybody. I had to take everybody in sometimes because I love you all so much. But then, yeah, like when you and the George and Rebecca, when you guys were playing to the camera, I was like, that's pretty awesome too. But I kind of love that we didn't talk about it.
Nope. Well, we didn't have a whole heck of a lot of time together. So it was like, let's just do this thing. We're just gonna do it.
I enjoyed Zoom acting because I ate some crackers. Not to say I wasn't paying attention to the courtship scene. I was just eating my crackers.
I was like shushing my children, like, oh, why are we talking? Right? But yes, it's a very different vibe doing this whole Zoom thing. I have another question they said, hi, thank you so much for giving your time for this amazing production. I was wondering if you felt that it would be appropriate to update the play with modern language or timing, move it to the 1950s, etc. Does anyone ever do that?
They do.
I does do that because it's not in public domain yet. so you can't. I mean, I think people do make choices when you see different productions. Some people will update it with, gender fluid casting. Some people will update it and they'll kind of modernize it, but they won't change the language. Is pretty concrete in the script and it has to stay that way. I think a lot of us forget, when we watch Shakespeare plays, they can be updated and change the language, but when a play's not in public domain yet, you're supposed to do it as word perfect as possible. But you can play with your setting a little bit, most certainly.
I mean, it's funny. I would almost say it's like an archetypal language. It's poetic. It's poetry. I mean, I was wondering if it was some of the kind of as a New Englander myself, like some of the ethnicity white stuff would like bump, but you know, the stage manager is so generous about, like, you know, in Pompeii, like it's almost the way it's anthropological. That's what came through for me, you know, and because the stage manager has such intelligence and generosity, it's like this is the town we're talking about, but it probably happens in other towns too. And again, because it's truly anthropological, like biological, really, you know, we eat, you know, we live, we love, we procreate, we die. So it didn't, that's when I was like, ooh, is it going to feel like sort of like old timey white people, you know, but it didn't really, I mean, I'm an old timey white person.
And I will say that's one thing I noticed too on this, like, you know, the Zoom, I'm doing a lot of Zoom acting. I have a Zoom acting class. My film acting class moved to Zoom. And I will say something though, like connecting with you guys through this way and getting to act and watch you guys do your art. I mean, it was really thrilling. I can't wait to see you in the real world line up, you know, and there's something really cool about stripping it down and going for it as like there's a party next door, my dog's scratching to get in, my kids turning the shower on. I mean, that level of concentration and commitment, I thought it was beautiful. I mean, I got my tear. This show, when it works, makes you cry.
Yeah.
And like I felt invested. And yeah, I want to say that your stage manager, Michael, it was beautiful. Yeah. And it set us up in a way that, like, I don't know, just the resonance. And like I was chasing my accent. I lost it like 7 times, everything. And I didn't care. I was just ripping. I mean, like it was fun to get out and, you know, experience being an actor. I miss it. I miss being, you know, being on set or on a stage, and it sucks, but this brought me a lot of joy to be part of it. And I love you all. I can't wait to see you all in person down the road. You know?
You know, and we have several comments of people going, I hope you do some more. Let's do some more. So I hope we do some more too. I had said during intermission, we're not getting into a crowded theater anytime soon.
Yeah.
Right? And we're not going. So, for better or for worse, this is how, you know, art is going to be displayed for the foreseeable future. But I mean, what a wonderful thing that, you know, you can collect, that we have the technology today to collect a group of people and still put on a fabulous reading of something. So we are going to wrap this up. I've got just a couple questions, and then we'll wind it down for the night. One person had asked, in the time of COVID-19, I wonder if you had any thought of humanity being disconnected and not understanding what the current time means. I'll be honest with you, that's exactly why, you know, I was actually talking with Amy when we thought, let's do a benefit for Frostig, and I kept going.
Well, no, it happened before that. So this is what happens. So my daughter Charlotte, who was just in, has been her drama student for 4 years, and now I will never leave the Harrises because I love them so much. And the high schoolers had been worked on Guys and Dolls since they had one big show. So since September, right?
Yeah.
And then I'm like, okay, May 16th, 17th is not, you know, and I'm like, when is, you know, and so Christina texted me, she's like, I gotta tell them. I said, okay. And then the next day I hear her talking about our town, and I literally texted her. I was like, oh no, you effing are not. You are a genius. Like the idea of like what we miss. Right. My daughter's missing her graduation. They're missing things. They're missing, and like you don't. So maybe it's either older people appreciate our town, or honestly, younger people who now are living through COVID-19. They miss one another. Right. They miss the day-to-day, you know, school. I mean, it's so beautiful. So it was really your insight with them, really. And then I said, well, why not? Let's just do it, because it's the greatest play ever.
Let's just do it. Let's just do it.
The greatest.
Also, the you know, it is a great stroke of genius to do this play because of the themes of not knowing what you have until you don't.
Right.
And what Lee was saying, you know, I really believe that the arts and the way people interact in the most simple way is the thing that saves us in these times, you know, and this play is really about that. It's just sort of presents us to us and says, you don't have to be anything special. You are, you don't be original. You already are, and then I think that art is the way out of something like that. Shakespeare wrote King Lear during a quarantine. Couldn't go out of the house. And the Italian Renaissance was like
the plague.
The entirety of Florence died, and it started the same year that happened in Florence. So it's a natural move for people to do this. And I look at the screen in front of me, these beautiful actors, beautiful people, and I can literally feel like my body carbonated. It's just it's one of the best tools we have.
My God, that was beautiful. And we'll wrap this up, but I want to say, use the phrase often. I was talking to Scott about this. I use the phrase often, this too shall pass. And I've been using it the past few months, people talking, when can we get together? And I keep saying, my grandma Taylor used to say all the time, this too shall pass. And in working on this production, it became so relevant to me that the phrase that often gives me so much comfort to know that things, this will end, it really resonated with me recently that when I say this too shall pass, we're talking about our time, our precious time together as humans on this planet. And that entire new turn for me, that phrase, and that I need to give it a lot more respect than just, this bad time will end, but that this beauty, this too shall pass. I think Michael, I think one of the biggest things, I'm so thankful, my soul needed to be satiated with creativity as well. And I can't say it enough that I'm so thankful that, you all have crossed my life, and some of you have been dear friends of mine for many, many, many years, and some of you are brand new friends of mine, but do not be mistaken, you are all friends of mine now. So thank you. I really appreciate each and every one of you.
Scott, you're her special friend.
Yes, you
I knew her the longest. So
it is our 25th wedding anniversary.
Oh my God.
Yes.
They were 10 when they got
Exactly. We were George and Emily. We got married.
I knew you before you were married.
I know you did, Michael.
February 11th, 1899.
Yes.
But Christina, I gotta salute you though too, because you're badass. I just really, it took a lot of the way you were organized, the way you broke down the technology, the way that guided us through. I mean, that was cool.
Yeah.
I learned a lot. I mean, for my other productions that I'm doing, and the workings of it. And thanks for having me involved. I really appreciate you guys. You saved me. I mean, this is what we do. We're storytellers. That's why we're actors. And, in the ancient days, theater was sacred. And acting's always sacred to me, you guys, to get to tell these stories and connect with audiences. And so to be involved in a show like this that resonates my heart, I mean, I got my actor buzz going right now. Thanks to all y'all.
You're here, Lee.
Mwah! All right, folks, we have kept you on a long time. Again, I thank everybody for joining us. Love you all, and our paths will be crossing many, many, many more times. Sarah, we will be hanging out, trust me.
Love it. Love it.
Yes. Annie, I'm so glad we got to know each other.
Thank you for having me. It was wonderful, just wonderful.
Awesome.
Thank you, Amy, for the
Yes. Yep. All right, my friends. So with that, we part and say goodnight, and until the next show.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, Grover's Corners.
Good night, everyone. Thanks, audience.
Good work, everyone. Nice to meet you.
Good night. Please donate to Frostig School.
Yeah. Thanks, you guys. Good night.
Good night.
Night.
Good night.
I like to be last.
Thank you, Christina. I love you guys.
I love you, Michael Klug. Bye. All right, folks, we are signing off. I'm going to click off. You'll see a placard for just a few seconds because YouTube has about a 20-second lag behind us. So I will be clicking off. Good night.